Today, we will dive into the key concepts of separation of powers and federalism in the Constitution. Let's explore how these principles shape our government. In this chapter, we will delve into the structure of the Constitution, focusing on the key principles of separation of powers and federalism. We will explore how these concepts shape the distribution of power within the government. Let's get started. Welcome to the introduction of our chapter on the structure of the Constitution, separation of powers and federalism, and differing viewpoints. Firstly, the topic of background checks for firearm purchases has been a focal point. The idea here is to ensure that individuals looking to buy guns undergo thorough background checks to prevent those with a history of violence or mental illness from obtaining firearms. This measure, exemplified by the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993, aims to close potential loopholes and enhance public safety. Secondly, the proposal to ban assault weapons has stirred controversy. These firearms, known for their rapid-fire capabilities, have been linked to various mass shootings, prompting calls for their prohibition. While supporters argue that such a ban could mitigate the severity of such incidents, opponents raise concerns about Second Amendment rights and the effectiveness of such measures in curbing gun violence. Lastly, the implementation of red flag laws has emerged as a strategy to address individuals deemed to pose a threat to themselves or others. These laws, also referred to as extreme risk protection orders, allow for the temporary removal of firearms based on evidence of concerning behavior or mental instability. Despite being introduced in response to tragic events like the Parkland school shooting, critics highlight potential issues related to due process and the potential misuse of these laws against law-abiding gun owners. These ongoing debates underscore the complex and multifaceted nature of gun control discussions in contemporary society. In this chapter, we delve deeper into the separation of powers and federalism as foundational principles of the U.S. Constitution. The separation of powers ensures that each branch of government has its own distinct responsibilities and powers, preventing any one branch from becoming too powerful. For example, Congress makes laws, the President enforces laws, and the judiciary interprets laws. On the other hand, federalism divides power between the federal government and state governments, striking a balance between national unity and state autonomy. This division allows the federal government to handle issues like national defense and foreign policy, while states have authority over matters such as education, such as freedom of speech and expression. The right of LGBTQ individuals to participate in pride parades and other public demonstrations is protected under the First Amendment, highlighting the importance of safeguarding their freedom of expression. Recognizing and protecting LGBTQ rights is not only a matter of legal significance, but also a fundamental aspect of promoting a fair and inclusive society that upholds the principles of equality and individual liberties. All right, so when we talk about separation of powers, we're basically looking at how the government is divided into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. This division is crucial because it prevents any one branch from becoming too powerful, ensuring a system of checks and balances within our government. The Constitution divides the government into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch has its own specific powers and responsibilities to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. This system of separation of powers ensures a balance of power within the government and prevents tyranny. For example, the legislative branch makes laws, the executive branch enforces laws, and the judicial branch interprets laws. This division of powers allows each branch to act as a check on the others, safeguarding individual rights and preventing the concentration of power in the hands of a few. The system of checks and balances created by the separation of powers is essential for the functioning of a democratic government. All right, so when we talk about the legislative branch, we're basically looking at the part of the government that's in charge of making laws. This includes passing legislation, approving budgets, and overseeing government agencies. Congress, which is made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives, is the key player here. An example of the legislative branch in action would be when they passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010 to reform health care. So, in a nutshell, the legislative branch is all about creating and shaping the laws that govern our country. The legislative branch, which consists of Congress made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives, is responsible for passing laws, approving budgets, declaring war, and overseeing government agencies. An example of the legislative branch's power is seen in the passing of the Affordable Care Act in 2010 to reform health care. This demonstrates how Congress plays a vital role in shaping policies that directly impact the lives of citizens. The separation of powers ensures that no single branch of government becomes too powerful, promoting a system of checks and balances within the federal government. All right, let's talk about the executive branch. This branch is all about putting laws into action and making sure things run smoothly. The president is the big boss here, with the power to veto laws, lead the military, and choose important government officials. It's a crucial part of our government system that keeps things moving forward. The executive branch, headed by the president, plays a crucial role in enforcing laws and implementing policies within the government. The president holds significant powers such as vetoing legislation, commanding the military, and appointing federal judges and officials. Additionally, the president has the authority to issue executive orders, negotiate treaties, and oversee federal agencies. An example of the president's use of executive orders is the Emancipation Proclamation issued by Abraham Lincoln, which declared all slaves in Confederate territory to be free. These powers and responsibilities are essential for the functioning of the government and the implementation of laws and policies. All right, let's talk about the judicial branch. This branch is all about interpreting the Constitution, making sure laws are applied fairly, and protecting individual rights. From the Supreme Court to lower courts, they play a vital role in judicial review, as shown in landmark cases like Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. The judicial branch plays a crucial role in our legal system by interpreting the Constitution and ensuring that laws are applied fairly. They have the power to resolve disputes between individuals, organizations, and government branches, while also upholding the rule of law and protecting individual rights. The Supreme Court and lower courts are instrumental in judicial review, where they assess the constitutionality of legislative and executive actions. An example of the judicial branch's impact is the landmark case of Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, where the court declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, leading to advancements in civil rights. This showcases how the judicial branch can shape society and uphold the principles of the Constitution through their decisions. All right, class. Today we're diving into the concept of federalism. Federalism is all about the division of power between the federal government and the states, ensuring a balance of power and preventing any one level of government from becoming too dominant. It's like a system of checks and balances that allows states to have their own laws and regulations while still following federal laws. So, let's explore how this structure plays out in our Constitution and impacts our legal system. Federalism, as we discussed in the previous slide, is all about the division of power between the federal government and the states. This division ensures that no single level of government becomes too powerful and dominates the others. By allowing states to handle certain issues on their own, it prevents the federal government from overstepping its boundaries and infringing on states' rights. This system also promotes diversity and experimentation in governance, as states can implement policies that suit their unique needs and preferences. Ultimately, federalism is a crucial aspect of our constitutional structure that maintains a delicate balance of power between the federal government and the states. In this section, we will delve into the concept of enumerated powers, which are specific powers granted to the federal government by the Constitution. These powers, outlined in Article 1, Section 8, include crucial abilities such as taxation, regulation of commerce, coinage of money, and the authority to declare war. Enumerated powers are specific powers granted to the federal government by the Constitution, as outlined in Article 1, Section 8. These powers include the authority to tax, regulate commerce, coin money, and declare war. A prime example of an enumerated power is Congress's ability to regulate interstate commerce, ensuring a fair and consistent system of trade between states. By clearly defining these powers, the Constitution establishes boundaries for the federal government's authority, promoting a system of checks and balances among the branches of government and preventing overreach. This framework helps maintain the balance of power and ensures that each branch operates within its designated scope of authority. Today, we're diving into the concept of reserved powers. These powers are not specifically given to the federal government, but are instead reserved for the states or the people. Think of it as areas where states have the authority to make their own rules, like education policies and local government decisions. It's all about the balance between federal and state powers outlined in the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution outlines the concept of reserved powers, which are powers not specifically granted to the federal government, but reserved for the states or the people. This includes areas such as the regulation of interstate commerce, education policies, and local governments. For instance, states have the authority to establish their own education standards and policies without federal intervention. The idea of reserved powers helps maintain a balance of power between the federal government and the states, allowing states the flexibility to govern themselves in areas not designated to the federal government. Understanding reserved powers is essential for grasping the division of power between the federal government and the states, ensuring a system of checks and balances to prevent any one level of government from becoming too dominant. Today, we're diving into the concept of concurrent powers. These are powers that both the federal and state governments share, such as the ability to tax, establish courts, and regulate commerce. It's important to understand how these powers intersect and how they shape our system of government. Concurrent powers are those shared by both the federal and state governments, such as the authority to tax, establish courts, and regulate commerce. For instance, both levels of government can levy taxes on income. This shared responsibility helps maintain a balance of power between the federal and state governments, ensuring that essential functions are effectively carried out at both levels. It's crucial to understand how these concurrent powers work to appreciate the intricate relationship between the federal and state governments in our constitutional system. All right, so the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution is a crucial concept that establishes federal laws and treaties as the highest authority in the land. This means that in any conflicts between federal and state laws, federal law always takes precedence. It's been reinforced through key cases like McCulloch v. Maryland and Obergefell v. Hodges, highlighting the importance of federal supremacy in our legal system. The Supremacy Clause is a critical part of the Constitution that establishes federal laws, treaties, and the Constitution itself as the highest law of the land. This means that in case of a conflict, federal law takes precedence over state laws. For example, in the case of McCulloch v. Maryland in 1819, the Supreme Court ruled that a state cannot tax a federal entity, emphasizing the supremacy of federal law over state law. Another significant case is Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015, where the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, demonstrating how federal law overrides conflicting state laws to ensure consistency across the country. Understanding the Supremacy Clause is crucial for maintaining the balance of power between the federal government and the states, as it clarifies the hierarchy of laws and prevents jurisdictional conflicts. All right, so the 10th Amendment is all about federalism and how it reserves powers not given to the federal government for the states or the people. This amendment is super important because it helps define the balance of power between the federal government and the states, impacting things like education and drug laws. The 10th Amendment is a crucial part of our system of federalism, as it clearly states that any powers not given to the federal government are reserved for the states or the people. This helps maintain a balance between the national government and the states, preventing either from becoming too powerful. One example of this is seen in education policy, where states have the majority of control over curriculum, funding, and standards, allowing for flexibility to meet the specific needs of each state. Another example is the legalization of marijuana, where states have asserted their rights to make decisions without federal interference, despite federal laws against it. Overall, the 10th Amendment plays a key role in ensuring power is shared between the national government and the states, respecting democracy and individual rights. Interstate relations are crucial for fostering peace and collaboration among different states. Through agreements like interstate compacts, states can address shared issues and work together to achieve common goals, such as managing water resources or improving transportation systems. These relationships help promote unity and cooperation on a broader scale. Interstate relations are vital for maintaining peace, cooperation, and coordination among states. States need to collaborate and negotiate with each other on various issues like natural disasters, terrorism, and economic challenges. These relationships also impact trade agreements, environmental policies, and security arrangements. By forming alliances and partnerships, states can work together to achieve common goals and address shared concerns. Policymakers, diplomats, and legal experts must understand interstate relations to navigate the complex network of state relationships. Through promoting dialogue and diplomacy, interstate relations can help prevent conflicts and foster mutual understanding among states. Interstate relations play a vital role in addressing shared issues and promoting cooperation between states. From forming compacts for water management to negotiating trade agreements and coordinating law enforcement efforts, these examples showcase how states work together for mutual benefit and effective governance. Interstate relations involve states coming together to address common issues that cross state lines. This can be seen in the formation of interstate compacts, such as the Colorado River Compact, which allocates water rights among multiple states and Mexico for coordinated water management. Trade agreements between states, like the USMCA, promote economic growth by creating favorable conditions for businesses and consumers. Additionally, coordination of law enforcement efforts, like the Western States Information Network, helps combat cross-border crimes such as drug trafficking by facilitating information sharing and collaboration among law enforcement agencies. These examples highlight how states can work together to effectively address shared challenges and promote mutual benefits. Dual sovereignty is a fundamental principle in the United States that recognizes the separate powers and responsibilities of both the federal and state governments. This concept allows states to create their own laws and regulations, while also enabling both levels of government to enforce criminal laws independently. It helps strike a balance between centralized authority and state autonomy in our system of government. In this slide, we delve deeper into the concept of dual sovereignty, which highlights the separate powers and responsibilities held by both the federal government and state governments. This means that each level of government can create laws and regulations within their own jurisdiction. For instance, states have the flexibility to tailor laws to meet the specific needs of their population. Moreover, both federal and state governments can enforce their own criminal laws, allowing for prosecution by either authority depending on the nature of the offense. This system of dual sovereignty helps maintain a balance of power between the two levels of government, ensuring effective governance within their respective spheres of influence. It also establishes a system of checks and balances, where each level can act as a check on the powers of the other. State sovereignty is a crucial aspect of our federal system, granting individual states the power to govern themselves independently. This allows states to create and enforce laws on a range of issues, highlighting their autonomy and authority within the larger framework of the federal government. States have the authority to govern themselves independently from the federal government. This means that each state can make its own laws on education, healthcare, and criminal justice, separate from federal regulations. State sovereignty is crucial in federalism as it allows for a balance of power between the federal government and the states. It also promotes experimentation and innovation in policymaking, as states can try different approaches to problem solving. Overall, state sovereignty ensures that power is shared between the federal government and the states, preventing it from being concentrated solely at the federal level. All right, class, let's wrap up this chapter on the structure of the Constitution. In summary, we've covered the key principles of separation of powers and federalism, which are essential for understanding how authority is divided among branches of government and between the federal and state levels. In this chapter, we focused on the Constitution's structure, highlighting separation of powers and federalism. We discussed the roles of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, as well as federalism's aspects like enumerated, reserved, and concurrent powers. We also covered interstate relations, dual sovereignty, and state sovereignty. Thank you for your attention. Questions are welcome. In wrapping up, it's essential to grasp the significance of the separation of powers and federalism outlined in the Constitution for a well-operating government. Remember, the Constitution evolves with our democracy, so keep delving into its intricacies. Thank you for your focus. Any questions?